Hey, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you. So today my topic is I will walk you through the PostgreSQL extensions, right? So I may not be covering more, but I have three of the extensions that I have picked to cover that up. Services, the MSBI suite, SSIS, SSRS, and SSAS. And later I get a chance to work on the various RDBMS and NoSQL databases. Okay, coming to the agenda, as Sailesh has given some context on the extensions, right? The PG vector, and we will go little deep into it, but not the PG vector. So I have the three extensions that I have considered for this session to be presented. One is PG stat statements, and another one is Postgres foreign data wrapper and PG crypto. We will deep dive into these. Okay, so we'll see why we require to use the extensions. So how many of them are familiar with using the PostgreSQL extensions? What challenges you see? Or what advantages that you feel that, okay, bringing these extensions really helps or extend the capabilities of PostgreSQL? Or do you see any the limitations or any kind of there is a risk of having the extension in my database, so I don't entertain to have the extensions to be installed in my machine, in my PostgreSQL server? Okay, thank you. We'll take those details at the last of this session. So in a nutshell, I would like to explain the extensions are packaged, right? The data types, indexes, and core capabilities. Apart from the core capabilities of PostgreSQL, you can brought the other capabilities which you can write in a library format and pack them into under the hood of extension, which you can share over the GitHub to the community, right? It is open to the community once it get approved, right? And you can publish them in the GitHub so that everyone can get that installed in their PostgreSQL server. So how to install it? So you don't require to have the exe file to get that installed. However, you have to have the library file to place them in the database data directory, right? And with the help of small command called create extension. So you just need to run this create extension command followed by the extension name, which could be, for our case, we can PostgreSQL underscore foreign data wrapper or PG crypto, right? And each extension will have its own version. And if you have any interdependency between the PostgreSQL extensions that you have installed, you must be careful before you uninstall them, right? There might be a dependencies where when you are uninstalling them or when you are taking that off from your database under hood, when you are running the actual function or whatever the code block that you have referring to that particular extension would throw an error. Okay, so as on today, 62 extensions are available in the community of PostgreSQL, right? And there are third-party extensions as well. Okay, so typically, how many of them you aware of the total number? So how many PostgreSQL extensions number? 100 plus? 200? Thousands?
Anybody can create extensions.
Right, but some, some business, it should solve some business case, right? It's not something like it is open and you can create the extensions, no, right? So it should solve some business use case, right? So we have 300, including the 300 plus, including the third-party extensions. And what kind of enhanceability or enhances that will brought into the PostgreSQL? One is the additional data type, head store. Anybody use the head store? Good. Okay, it's a key value pair data type, which is not come with the core PostgreSQL, right? And the index type, B-tree, GIN, and GIST. Most of programmers would have used it. And fuzzy string match, which is the looks like it is a PG vector kind of functionality. It does, yes, it is. And it also helps us to do the phonetic search. Phonetic search is a kind of technique used to find the words or names which are sound similar. Okay? And authentication methods. So when you are storing the password, right? If I had access to the database, I can go directly to the table and I can see the password of everyone, right? I can misuse it. So we have the PG crypto extension. It offers many things to do. However, I chosen to explain in this topic is how to hash the password. So we will see that in next slide. So we can check by using the PG available extensions table, right? How many extensions that are currently in the database, the PostgreSQL database that it has, how many of them installed, followed by the version. In the right-hand side, there is another table called PG available extension versions, where you can go through the, you can see two of them. One is version and installed version. So if you look at the right-hand side slide, right? So you will see the version and installed version. Okay. Now I would like to bring you to the PG stat statement extension, which helps us to track the performance and as well as how to optimize, what are the parameters that we need to consider to optimize the query, right? What kind of details that PG stats give, we will see in the next slide. And it will give the comprehensive view, right? So let's say we have two kind of statements that are getting running in the background in the database. Let's say one I have fired through the view or function, right, which has many lines of code. And the another one is a simple select, which is being submitted from the application, right? So how to differentiate those two? So I want to find out the statement or the workload which has been submitted by application versus the script that has been submitted by a manual user or somebody, or the database user. Okay, these are all the key statistics that it will help us to look at, right? When you typically drop a query, right, to the database to get that processed, it will passes through all these phases, right? And then part of this phase, what it does, it will create a plan and it will run through this query by consuming the database resources. So we talk about caching, we talk about in-memory operations, we talk work mem, right? So how many of them are familiar with work mem? So is it good or bad to set the work mem setting for the database? So how many of them experience that after we set the work mem, the performance of the database got dropped, or you see more resources getting utilized, right? So we have to be careful before we set that work mem. So all these things we can understand or we can get to know by looking at the details with the help of PG stat statements. And we also can have the look at the val storage and shared memory and other. Okay. Now, okay, we have the extension, we have enabled it. How does it help to the DBAs, right? So it helps us to identify the statements which are frequently get that run, right? Number of times a particular query with different parameters, right? So we can have a glance of those details. So if you look at the select statement that was showing up here, right? It has many things, but I have chosen selectively. So we have more other metrics that will be given from the pgstat statements. So we can make use these details to troubleshoot, right? And we can bucketize the statements which are taking more time, right? Or we can segregate the SQL statements which are more IO intensive, right? More memory or more database resources being consumed. So we can basically bucketize, or we can segregate them, and by looking at these details, we can separate them and try to look at, is there any room to create the indexes or some kind of queries where we can consider for caching those things, or the queries which is being more frequently submitted from the application. See, when any sign-in operation performed at the application level, right? Certain SQL statements will get executed against the database. So those things we can understand by looking at this report. So here the glance of query execution stat. I just ran through the query, and where you can see the calls, right? The execution time and how many rows it has been picked up, right? And the hit percentage and what is the query, right? And we have, as I said, we have two types of queries. One is the query which has a kind of statement with a direct select. The other one is running through any function or any stored procedure, a kind of that type of database object. Okay, any questions before I move to this? Any questions on the pgstat statements?
So what part of the PG it will go and fetch this data? Is it a table, internal table in PG, or is it?
Yes, yeah. It will make use those details and.
There is readily available internal tables.
Correct, correct. Any other has any questions?
There is also shows wait event and wait event type.
Wait event?
And wait event type.
I don't think it shows up. Yeah, we will see that at the last of this session. I had the query readily available. We will just get to run that. And next one is Postgres foreign data wrapper. Most of you are familiar with it, right? So foreign data wrapper helps us to bring the foreign tables, which means that if you have running your workloads in SQL Server or a neighborhood PostgreSQL, which is in another instance, right? If you want those to be integrated with your current database, you can just configure the PostgreSQL foreign data wrapper. And it follows the tables through the SQL MED, right? External data management. And it acts as a simplify the ETL process. You don't require to do an ETL, right? So you can still maintain your table in the foreign, in the original owner of the database where that particular table is. So you can just refer them that in your local, the database where you are in. So here you can see the local server and remote server. Whereas the remote server is owning this particular table, and we are referring the same table in our local system, right? So to do this, we had to compromise on certain things, like you have to give the target remote server address, right? Instance level details and the username followed by the credentials. So all these details you had to configure to access that table. And there are certain limitations with this particular foreign table, right? You cannot perform the truncate operation. Instead, you had to run the delete without where condition, right? If you want to wipe out the entire table or something, right? And the other thing is like, if you want to create any index on this particular table, right? You can still create, but it not actually serves the actual intention of the index, because the foreign table will have the index will be maintained in the target server, right? Not in the local server. But once you brought those details to the local server, then this index will help us to do certain kind of operations. So it will not, I cannot say that it is a bad practice, but based on your use case, you can just go and create the indexes on it. And you can access the real-time data, but when you perform the bulk operations, either update or insert or something, right? So you have to compromise on the performance, and that all depend on the network latency. If you have, then it will take more time to get that process and brought the results back to your source system. Okay, here are the common use cases. You don't require data migration, gradually moving. So if you have a requirement like a long-term plan where you have to migrate all your data from the remote server to your local, but temporarily you want to give an access to those tables, then you can consider. And you have a cloud migration plan, right? So as of now, if you're running your workloads in on-premise, and you have a plan to migrate all your workloads in future down the line, next 12 months or 1 year, but still you want these resources to be available on your local system, then you can just make use this use case. Yeah, as I explained, we already covered this, the indexes, right? And the triggers on foreign tables. And importantly, the ACID properties or the transactions management. So if you want to do a kind of transaction compliant operation, right? It's not something like the local server may not be take care of the transaction, right? The foreign server or the server where the table exists, it also has to take care of the transaction. So it is not 100% guaranteed that always ACID compliance works on your foreign table. Security considerations. So credentials for remote databases, we have to manage, right? So we have to make sure that to manage or give the respective permissions to the users to make this foreign table as available for them. Okay, next is PGCrypto. So this is another extension which provides a cryptographic operation support, right? If you want to perform any cryptographic operations, like as we discussed, if you want API data, you are maintaining in a database table and you don't want to give an normal text, right? It should not look normal text, and it should not be available for human readable format for unauthorized users or some. You can just enable the SSL. It's a preliminary part to enable the PGCrypto. So unlike the other extensions, right? PG start statements and the first one, the foreign data wrapper, right? Unlike that, for this particular extension, required enable SSL, right? So we can check the database whether the SSL is enabled or not by using the simple SQL statement. So in the right-hand side in the diagram, it shows how it look like, right? If any unauthorized user which tries to access the data, so the details that were present in the table will not be shown up in a regular text. It will be in a format of cipher. So for this particular PG crypto, I have chosen password hashing technique, right? I just created a table and I have given my password and I have source one value, right? When I try to select same statement, right, I cannot see them, right? You can see here, it's not the normal text, it is the hashing. Okay, now if you want to decrypt, right? So you cannot decrypt because a database will not store the actual password. In the background, it will generate a hashing, right? It uses a hashing technique and it will create the hash and it stores that hash. So when you given the original password, it will try to match with that hash and it will respond back whether the password that you have given was right or wrong, right? Okay, most of the business users ask, how can I update or something, right? If I forgot my password. So the simple answer is go and reset. Right, yeah, okay. Okay, we are good and we are more interested in making use of PG crypto, but we have to consider few things in mind when we are recommending this PG crypto. So we have symmetric and asymmetric encryption, which is symmetric is like with one key you can just encrypt and decrypt the data. With asymmetric, you require a public and private key to encrypt and decrypt the data, right? So performance will be always a challenge, right? If you dealt with large amount of data, right? You have to encrypt it and decrypt it back when you are reading through the data. And importantly, byte A is the data type which is being used to store the data. If you impose any encryption methodologies, right? So always it gets stored in byte A data type format. Indexes, always it is implication, right? PG crypto is in transit or at rest. What kind of cryptography mechanism that follows? Is it works for in transit or at rest? At rest. Yeah, it works at rest. So in transit, you have to take care of it, right? You have to make use some other mechanism or any KMS key, right? Here are the references. Okay, anybody has any questions?
These are all approved by PG or recommended by PG?
Yes, yes. All of these PG crypto and PG stat statements and the foreign data wrappers.
All extensions PG recommends or PG?
Correct. So importantly, yeah, thanks you asked that. So we have one third-party website, I can say, where you can see the extensions which are supported for multi-cloud purpose, right? How many of them were actually recognized by the Postgres community, and how many of them like are third parties one or something. Yeah.
So yeah, FDW extension, right?
Right, foreign data wrapper, yes.
It looks interesting, but I have a question about query processing. Where the query processing will done? Target or source?
At source level it will done, but the request will be sent to the target. So request will be sent to the where actually the foreign data table sits, right? So it will send over there. So there will be a network implications, right? So your network should be strong enough to carry the load. Let's say if you are doing self-start from, which has a millions of records, then your I/O is like the utilization of I/O will go up,
Yes, yes.
which may cause your database resources will be more condensed, right? And everybody will get logged, right? Because that query will keep on running to get more data. So one recommendation when you are dealing with foreign data wrapper is use the offset or the pagination.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like streaming.
Correct. And by default, there is a batch size property, right? When you are configuring any foreign data wrapper, right? So you have to define the batch size property. Otherwise, it will not basically gives the details of it. Let's say if you put the batch size is 500, right? So which means that it allowed to give only the 500 records for the category that you have submitted or for the query that you have submitted. Right. That way it will already pre-filtered at the table configuration level, right? Right. Did I answer your question?
Yes, but that leads to another question.
Yeah.
So if it is a hybrid, hybrid approach, right? PG is connecting to some other database.
Okay.
Does still the same means query processing will done in the PG level, not at the target. So
What is the other source mean? SQL server?
SQL server.
Okay.
Yeah.
So always the request will be directed to the parent of the table.
Means entire select star from will be
Yes.
sent it to
It will like request and response.
It's just an interface, but it will give you in a table.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So it supports all any other database.
Yeah, you can build the ODBC as well, right? ODBC, you know the risks of setting up the ODBC.
When there are joins between like a foreign table and the...
Correct. That's where the index will come into the picture. So if you want to be well performed your foreign data wrapper table that you have configured, so you can create the local index, right? So once the result that has been brought from the parent database to your local system, then the permutations and combinations or whatever the join operations that you have defined, it will play a major role with help of the index. Yeah.
So I had a question around indexing only. You mentioned that when we are creating an index, that index is created in that foreign database itself.
Correct.
And the query will also be running in that foreign database. Did I understand it correctly?
See, here two things. One is the table where we have created from. So the table has, let's take an example. SQL Server has a table. Now you are running your workloads on Postgres. You have created a foreign data wrapper, you have enabled and you have configured, which is from the SQL Server to Postgres. So in the SQL Server has the table and it also has the indexes. Okay?
Yeah.
Now you are querying that table from the Postgres. So your question is, will that make use the index capabilities? No.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to understand. In case this doesn't, in case I cannot use that index, is there any other approach than importing data from that database to my current database?
That is ETL process, right?
ETL. Okay.
So it's like, as I said, if you have a long-term plan where you want federate your table data temporarily to the local system, just go with the foreign data wrapper. Anybody has any other questions?
Just want to answer him. Actually, the foreign data wrapper interface has undergone a lot of changes over the versions. So now the new versions of Postgres is capable of understanding the execution plan and push down part of the execution to the remote server. So the difference between DB link, you might have heard about the DB link.
Yeah, SQL Server DB link that he's talking about.
foreign data approach is the Postgres is completely aware about the table definition in the its own site. So it can plan properly what are the how to break down this SQL statement and what need to be sent to the remote server and how much of that calculation can be done on the remote and get the minimum set of result back to this machine. So I have written a detailed blog post about that, the push down approach. So the idea is to reduce the network traffic. So if you are doing a lot of calculation, so no need to bring all the data back to this machine. So those calculations can be done on the remote machine, and that only the result will come back to the requested site.
Yeah, creating the index reviews.
Yeah, so this part of the push down part will be sending that part to the remote machine.
Correct.
And it is up to that machine to plan that part.
Exactly.
So if you are sending, say, selecting 3-4 tables, and the 2 tables are remote machines, and those 2 joins will be sent to the remote machine, and it is up to that machine to plan for that. And definitely, if it is Oracle or SQL Server,
Yeah.
that side will be clear to that machine. So that will plan and get the result back to this machine.
Optimize the query at target.
All this happens over the ODBC only or anything else?
That's
The ODBC is slow.
the PostgreSQL FTW is more advanced. It's a kind of reference design. So other FTWs may not be implemented all these features. So if you are using ODBC or the SQL Server has TDS FTW, and Oracle FTW is slightly more advanced, but other things are not very advanced. It may not be implemented all these features. But the PostgreSQL FTW is a kind of reference design, and that has almost all the features built in.
Because when you say ODBC, now your PG is working as a client.
Yeah.
Request to the server is getting.
So the ODBC, I think they might not have implemented all these features. So it depends on what are the features implemented by the FTW developer.
Yeah, importantly, other point is like most of the SQL Server users, which they would like to create the foreign data wrapper on the Postgres, right? So they try to refer to the master stuff, the master database tables, for some reason. It is not supported. So I just wanted to brought that. Yeah, here the script that I just run through, where I have stored, I have sourced plain text as a password to the database, but when I try to run the select star from the users, it gives me a different text altogether, right? Yeah, but the only statement that helps us is like, so I have passed my original secret, which gives me that for first record it is false, for second record it is true. Yeah. I wrap up my session. Anybody has any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Aswini.